In July 2014, we embarked on an adventure that would remain with us for a lifetime. This adventure to cross one of the oldest continents in the world was much more than a big motorbike ride or some trip into the outback. It was about the search of finding true brotherhood and teamwork. It was about pushing the boundaries and the challenges that city life robs us of. In this film, I hope to take you on a journey as we follow the footsteps of Burke and Wills, crossing more than 7,000 kilometres through the heart of Australia. Watch as we ride together, laugh together, break down together, as we endeavour to see the same places as the explorers did in 1860. Welcome to the Burke and Wills Adventure of 2014. Today is our first full day on the Burke and Wills Adventure, and our goal is to put as many miles behind us. Our final destination will be the small town of Kerrang, located just 300 kilometres north of Melbourne. But before that, we'll be making a small detour and looking for the Burke and Wills Winery, located just 118 kilometres this side of Melbourne. I was having so much fun, I couldn't stop smiling, knowing that we were finally breaking free from all the stress. And then the team came to a sudden stop. After spending the whole morning fixing a heap of issues on Samantha's bike back in Lancefield, we thought that the worst of our mechanical problems were behind us. But once again, poor maintenance would put the blame squarely on me. I mean, why weren't these issues present back home when I first bought these bikes? I couldn't believe how useless these bikes were. What on earth was the army doing buying these machines? I mean, what idiot bought these Yamahas for our soldiers? Okay, first of all, tell me what happened from the beginning.
Well, Sam's driving down the road. This bike has conked out a few times on us, and we found out that was the ignition switch through the modified army bike. This is all just army stuff, right? The original ignition switch has been taken out. We changed that switch, we fixed that fault, and the bike's now conked out again. We've lost power to the switch, and I measured at the front, he only had 9 volts coming down the back here, and actually found the negative battery terminal loose. So the fault, I'd say, would be battery installer fault. So whoever installed the batteries, I'm unsure who it is, but George, I'd go and find out who installed your batteries and put the foot in the arse. Over.
There you go, you've heard it. It was a battery installation issue. And about a month ago, I put a brand new battery in there. However, I didn't put it in there. I left that to my 14-year-old son, Michael. So, Michael... No, hang on a moment.
Someone who can't defend himself.
Michael, I know you're watching this, son. Why didn't you do up the thing with the 10 mil or the Allen key or whatever the hell it is? Michael, we've conked out here. Have a look. Look, we've conked out because of you. Now he's got to take that panel off, you know, the one with the cable tie that we put on there. We've got to bloody take that off now. Use up a cable tie that's like 10 cents of my money, or because you didn't do it up. When I get home in Townsville, I'm going to break your ass. I'm going to break your ass. Over.
We have another issue, it's not charging.
This latest problem was very serious because without the bike charging, the battery would run flat from firing the plug. And when the plug stops firing, the bike will come to a sudden stop, putting the rider in danger while riding up in these hills. The question now was, how soon until the bike comes to that sudden stop again? With just a few kilometres left to go to that winery, we decided to keep going and try and charge the battery once we're there by swapping it over with the battery of one of the other bikes. The minutes seemed like hours, but we got to the winery without any issue, and now it was time to relax and enjoy Victoria's finest wines. This beautiful winery is located close to one of Burke's campsites, and therefore it took the name, the Burke and Wills Winery. I remember years back seeing this place on a map, and I'd always wanted to come here. The homestead was welcoming, and we were met by a wonderful young couple who were fascinated in our adventure and the journey before us. Meanwhile, we were fascinated with the huge range of wines to pick from. We sampled many of the wines, but I, for one, have to admit, I know nothing about wines, and it all tasted the same to me.
Yes, it's got a very strong body taste to it, of course. It's
A strong body taste to it? Why is it I never fail to sound stupid when I want to sound smart?
It's a good texture through it as well. The grapes are overripe, which is sort of the ideal thing that you want in a Shiraz here. And well, look, it's no bourbon and coke, but it's Burke and Wills. Outstanding.
It was time to get back on the road and try and make it to Kerrang from here. But as dusk was soon upon us, Dave instructed us to start looking for a place to rest. Tonight we'd have enough daylight left to set up camp and get our night routine going. We tend to be creatures of habit in the military, and we feel a great deal more content when there's structure in our days. So when we made camp, we all knew what our various duties were and we got busy doing them. On our second night, we had the entire camp ready in just 7 minutes. Phil got busy with dinner as Chris prepared a fire while Dave unloaded the spare parts for the damaged motorbike to be repaired. Now we have time to relax as the food starts cooking and the campfire gets burning, although usually it's the other way around.
What have you got there?
This is the greatest invention since sliced bread.
Yep.
It is the shitter.
I love it, I love it.
Points to note about it is you mess it, you clean it, and if you don't clip these fully into the seat,
Yep.
it will bounce off and you will end in the shit.
Literally.
Literally.
If only you could smell this. And if only they couldn't smell me.
So Chris, although we're getting ready to camp for the night and relax, you're actually working, mate. What have you got happening tonight, mate?
Yeah,
Tell me.
got a few things going on. It's 2014 and
That night, Chris would work past 2 a.m. putting a charging unit in the recovery vehicle so all our electronic gear, such as our GPS, our sat phone, our EPIRBs and of course our cameras that captured what you're seeing right now, could charge. He'd burn late into the night, but it didn't seem to bother him apart from the cold. He was determined to get us to the top of Queensland, and I've nothing but great respect for him. As I look back at our Burke and Wills adventure, I see that it was these moments that stayed with me the most. The camaraderie and sense of togetherness reminded me of what life should be about. Out here there was nothing to distract us, no phones, no internet, no TV or movies, just time together and living in the moment. I mean, how lucky are we?
It says that camp food doesn't have to be delicious or look great. Let me show you what some really good field kitchen cooking looks like right now.
So Sam and Phil have cooked chicken noodle vegetable soup, and they're in our little cup canteens right there. Now guys, seriously, look at that internet world. Look at that. Look how yummy it looks. Mum, you could cook this tonight, and won't the kids love it?
You know, it's really, really cold. But there's a problem. I need to go to the toilet. Number twos. But it's too cold to go out there. So I'm thinking about setting up the toilet near the campfire. All I need is a newspaper as well. You know, I want to relax, you know. I like to take my shirt off, sit back, read the paper.
I don't think we need to cheapen this documentary with toilet humour, so let's move on. The next day we broke camp very early as we needed to make up for lost time, and to be honest, I had no idea what the day would bring us. This was day 2 for us, and according to our riding plan, we should have been leaving someplace near Swan Hill, which is actually 60 kilometres ahead of us. So we got cracking in the freezing cold morning and rode, trying to stay warm. But suddenly Samantha yelled out that her bike had locked up, and this meant either engine seizure or brakes. On the side of the road, Chris quickly worked out that her back brakes had mysteriously locked up and Samantha could have been thrown off her bike. But unable to fix it there and then, we simply disconnected the brakes and we pushed on to Swan Hill. Following in the true footsteps of Burke and Wills, who came here on the 6th of September 1860, Swan Hill is where Burke sacked a number of his men and hired some new ones, in particular an elderly man called Charlie Gray, whose death in months to come would cost Burke dearly. We posed in front of a Moreton Bay fig tree that the locals believe was planted here by Burke and Wills. It was a remarkable feeling knowing that with all the issues that are going on with us, we still had high spirits knowing that we were hot on the trail of the original expedition.
Right now, folks, we're looking at the regulator assembly on Sam's bike and some very customised wiring here, as we can see, and this might be the regulator, but it's been out of another model bike by the looks. Custom corrosion, and the owner of the ready motorcycle is here.
This is Army engineering at its best, apparently. So the Australian Army got 500 of these bikes, but they wanted to put some fancy schmancy switch system in there. But obviously their wiring might be a little bit, left to desire. And right now the problem with this bike is we aren't able to charge it. So we've got to now fault find it. Chris is adamant that the problem's probably around here, and after lifting off the back of the bike and seeing the mess underneath there, I have to agree with him. There's corrosion there, so we may have contact issues. It's an aftermarket regulator from what Chris tells me. I'm not sure because I wouldn't know what a standard one looks like. Now we're going to
Trying to find a magician.
try and find a magician. We've got this lovely gentleman who's joined us.
I'll put you onto the bloke and sort it out.
Okay.
John was one of those guys that you hope to meet when you break down in a town and don't know where to start looking for things. This man saw us broken down on the side of the road, and then he drove me around for 4 hours to find valuable parts for our broken bike.
Well, there is an update. The electricals have been fixed on the bike. Unfortunately, the brakes are quite a serious issue. We've found the replacement parts for the brake in one shop, but they were old and they're rubber. And the moment we bought them, $60 later, we tried to fit them on, they broke.
While the reality of the situation sunk in, Dave, the group leader, got busy preparing us for our next location, never letting bad news affect his judgment. It's important from this point on to stay close enough to the small towns in case our bikes break down, and yet follow the Burke and Wills track. From here on, we would ride into the early evening to a location known as Boundary Bend, but not before we were visited briefly by our friend John on his beautifully restored Matchless. We followed him out of Swan Hill and onto our camp for that night.
Early morning, Dave's woken us with an improvised bugle, and it's a very, very foggy morning. I'll try and get some footage when they help me to get up and make me breakfast and coffee, and bloody cold.
Bloody cold doesn't even come close to describing this morning. With the River Murray as our backdrop, we camped high on a ridge, taking the full brunt of the cold with little protection. And our bikes were covered in frost, and that worried Chris, who knew that with this cold, the bikes simply wouldn't start. And that upset Dave, who'd got up extra early to wake us all to the sound of his bugle.
Well, it's a freezing morning and we have frost on everything, and equipment and machinery don't like cold, not that much cold. So today, how we're going to start these bikes is anyone's guess. Fingers crossed that they will work. We've got about 350 kilometres to ride in this freezing cold weather. So our warm weather gear is going to be tested to the max. Let's see how we go.
It's a bit frozen there. Come on!
Chris was not a fan of filming this scene, as he knew with every crank of the engine something could break from the bitter cold. Breaking internal parts of an engine would be fatal to any of these bikes, but I was convinced that I could get them running. However, all the effort in the world wasn't going to start these bikes with the cold. The solution was simple: take the problem away, and in this case the problem was the below zero temperature. So Chris would later instruct us to light a large fire and park the bikes near it, allowing the radiant heat to warm up the frozen oil and fuel inside the engines.
Ice all over me. We're going to ride in this weather.
Let's wait the headlight off now, George.
They're not liking it, are they, Chris?
Somewhere out there in 1860, Burke and his men woke to an equally cold morning, and a journal entry by Mr. Wills said, "The men are miserable and morale is low. Their clothing is wet and cold, and the rain has robbed us all of fire. But most heartbreaking of all for the men is the tobacco is too wet to light, and we long for the warmth."
And there's a tourist bus going by while they're warm and toasting. And they're looking out the window thinking, "You suckers! You suck! You freezing suckers!" Christopher, you're having a great time.
I can handle my hands being out here, but since the outside of my swag is so cold, it's like my hand in ice water with touch.
Oh, that's right, mate. I don't think our freezers get this cold, let alone our fridges.
Alright, we started to take down the tarp and this sliver of ice came down. This is my ice knife. No, we'll kill anyone.
Bullshit cold, it's too cold.
You want to take me on? You want to take me on?
I stepped over to the road to capture this view. We would endure another cold and slow day today thanks to the almost zero visibility. And I don't deny that this was a terrible experience for the team, knowing that just one car coming at us in our lane or an animal running onto the road would ruin our day, to say the least. But we needed to push on, and soon enough we started our bikes and experienced a chill so severe that our bones ached.
Feeling a bit guilty each time we stop in Sam's bike. We have to just wipe up a little bit of oil. Might have to go to Super Cheap Auto so I don't get a drip tray for the next spot. But just watch this oil going in down here, just to give you an idea of the temperature we're putting up with here.
It's like honey.
Dave, what was the coldest it was last night?
Well, I don't know how cold it was. It's worse, but when we got up, it was -2.
-2 degrees.
Last time I checked, it was 2 degrees, but I think we might have gone up maybe to 3 or 4.
Gotcha.
Might need to take off a layer.
Are you nice and warm in your car while we... I actually had frost over my gloves. On my left glove, I had frost, yeah.
I have my vents open for fresh air, and let me tell you, it's bloody cold in there.
He told us he's going to ride with the
Gives me an
windows
idea how you
down
guys
to,
travel.
To be part of the team.
but he has not.
What a load of bullshit. He's got his bloody heater on. I'm sure in the comms unit I heard him say, I'm getting hot, I'm going to unzip my pants. Zzz. Right, so don't give me that bullshit.
Technical update, Sam's bike when it's oil consumption, as you saw in the previous video, we're wiping up oil under it. We've topped it up with oil, and we've sort of calculated at this stage that it's burning around a litre per 100 kilometres, even with that heavier oil in it. So we've got a bit of a serious issue with that. It's still, you know, we could carry enough oil, but it looks we're going to need over 30 litres, like 35, 40 litres to get this bike across the line.
Just listen in for 2 seconds. From here we're going to push on to Mildura. I think we can sit on 80. The fog's lifted a fair bit and we know the temperature's come up a bit, which is great.
It took all my self-control to not give up the moment that I heard that one of my bikes was using 1 litre of oil per 100 kilometres. That meant to get home we'd need 43 litres, and at $40 for 5 litres in a container, I'd be spending nearly $300 on a bike that was completely worthless. I learned a very important lesson right there, that low mileage on an old bike is a bad thing. We pushed on to Mildura, where we met the owner of Sunraysia Motorcycle Wreckers to try and fix Samantha's brakes. With only 550 kilometres since we left Melbourne when we should have made 1,000 kilometres, I was sure the adventure would end soon for this bike, and Samantha with it. I had to sit away from the team as I was so upset with myself. Why on earth had I been so stupid by using old Yamahas for such an adventure? If only I'd properly tested these useless bikes beforehand, I'd never have brought them on my once-in-a-lifetime journey.
Here we actually have a replacement part, believe it or not, found by this gentleman here of Sunraysia Motorcycle Wreckers. This is Chris. He's doing us a rebuild on the master cylinder on the rear of the XT. Very grateful. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.
That's it. The thing's been fixed up at this point, so our brakes are no longer an issue. They've been sorted out thanks to this man behind me here, Christopher. Well done. We'll try and make the zoom happen. It doesn't happen the other way, apparently, on the iPhone. And that's it. We're just buying a couple little rubber seal things, a couple of dollars each, so we could have them as spares for the brakes. And then from this point on, we're shooting for Mongo National Park, and we say goodbye to the good folks here in Mildura.
With Melbourne now 700 kilometres behind us, we headed for Mongo National Park. Set deep in western New South Wales, this ancient land dates back to the beginning of time, and spanning over 2,400 kilometres, it incorporates 17 ancient lakes. This place is rich in archaeological treasure and the home of the Mongo Man. The Mongo Man find would change our understanding of human inhabitants in Australia that up until then was thought to be just 40,000 years old. Now, the clock was pushed back to an astounding 68,000 years. Mongo is also home to the oldest ever known site of early cremation in Australia. It also started right here. Now, the dry lakes were once rich with fish and animals, making it a perfect place for our early Aborigines to call home. It's a beautiful part of Australia and every photographer's dream to capture. The Great Wall of China, as it's called, is also a breathtaking view. We were stunned by its beauty. This little known part of the outback had to make it on our to-do list, even though it wasn't part of Burke's original journey.
Here we are at Camp 4
camping tonight at the Mongo National Park. We're going to film a whole lot for you tomorrow so you can have a look at the place. We've pulled up in the evening, and fingers crossed from this point on, no more night riding, because we rocked up a bit late here tonight. We had quite a few kilometres to do. And of course, we've had dramas, but we'll talk about that later. Right now, it's time to find out what's happening in the kitchen. Tonight's food is brought to you by Samantha. Samantha, tell us a little bit about what you've cooked for us tonight.
Well, we have here a good old chicken cacciatore camp style. You've got to use whatever's in the camp box and what is available and what is fresh and needs to be used up. So what we have here is a little bit of chicken with tomato pieces, a bit of chicken stock, broccoli because we've got to start eating it soon, a good old onion and garlic, and the good old pasta. So it's a good old, this is a recipe that my father taught me many years ago, and my mother, and it's going to warm our souls because it's a nice hot meal on this very cold evening.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Yeah.
Tonight it's time for something very special. It's Get to Know the Team. And we're going to start off with the head cook, Phil. Let's find out a little bit about Phil.
Phil, tell all our viewers a little bit about yourself. Come on. Wrap it up in 30 seconds.
A little about me.
Yep. Where were you born?
I was born in Oz, in Sydney.
And where did you go to school?
Homebush Boys.
Okay, and how old are you?
Oh shit, I'm not actually.
How old are you? Come on, Phil. It's not that hard. Why are you thinking about it?
I am 1 year away from the dirty decade.
You're in your 20s.
I am.
And what made you want to come along to the Burke and Wills expedition with us?
Just Mongo National Park.
Is that it, really? Well, welcome to Mongo National Park. Tomorrow, Phil's dream will come true to ride across all those salt flats.
Yeah.
Good morning, it's day 5. We're about to break camp for day 4. While the mechanics are busy over there knocking around the motorbikes, today I'm doing breakfast. And what are we doing? We're doing cheese. Have a look down here. We're going to cheese and egg muffins is the plan. So I got my Victorian eggs, which I had in this road case that I bought for $2, which all of them broke because Victorian eggs, Victorian hardware, Victorian drivers, Victorian people, they're just out of control. But anyway, we're out of Victoria now, we're in New South Wales. I feel a lot more relaxed. We're going to have a great meal and enjoy breakfast. Like every morning, Chris got busy dipping the bikes, and this time the news was bad. With less than 70 kilometres since we topped up Sam's bike, it was now completely empty again. It seems things were only getting worse, and soon enough in the days to come, she'd be off her bike and out of the adventure. It was a reality we all knew was coming, yet we chose not to speak of it.
So we're going to have to monitor this bike very closely and may have to stop a little more often than, monitor a little bit sooner than we normally would because it's off the stick again. We can buy oil.
From here on, we'd be back on the track following the 1860 expedition to the little town of Menindee. Menindee is the oldest European settlement in western New South Wales and is proud to be the oldest town established on the Darling River. Burke got here on October the 14th, 1860, and he wasn't the only great explorer to come through these parts. This is also the area that saw Thomas Mitchell in 1835, as well as Charles Sturt in 1844. It would be right here that something huge would happen between Burke and his most valuable man at the time, George Landells. As Burke felt the expedition was simply moving too slow, he decided to unload and sell many of his stores that the animals struggled to carry. He decided to offload all the rum that Landells claimed was for the camels to stop them getting sick. The problem is, Burke was getting sick of seeing Landells drunk every night on that same run. 60 gallons in total, or 270 litres. So Burke sells a lot, and this infuriates Landells, and the two men had it out. And as a result, Landell's quit on the spot, and that was the end of his second in charge. The other valuable item Burke sold here was all his stores of lime juice, the only real protection against scurvy, since most of them would be feeding on a diet of dried beef only. It's in this very town that I would see the same hotel that Burke and Wills stayed in while the men camped outside with the animals. After Landell's quit, William Wills was officially made second in command, so Menindee was an important place for Mr. Wills. And for us, it was also a chance to follow in the footsteps of Burke and Wills.